welcome to Seen Through Glass. Now let me take you back to 2006. I had just passed my driving test and I was looking for my first car. Now, being here in the UK and being 17 years old, there's only kind of one kind of car that you can choose from when you just pass your driving test, and that's a hatchback. But me being as unrealistic as ever, I was obsessing over and researching hot hatchbacks. And at the time, the kind of ultimate hot hatchback was the Renault Megane R26. Now, back in 2006, Renault had been kind of dominating Formula One. Fernando Alonso had just won 2 world championships, and to kind of celebrate that, Renault Sport made these sort of limited F1 inspired Clio and Meganes, and the R26 was one of those. It was lighter, more powerful, had different suspension, a limited slip diff, and then loads of sort of F1 inspired stickers and decals. I just thought it was the best thing ever made. However, my budget for my first car was around £2,000, and the R26 was, well, around £20,000. So it was never really going to happen. You can only then imagine my shock, my awe, my excitement when just a couple of years later, Renault came out and said, you know that R26 you loved, Sam? I went, yes. They went, well, we've made it better. There was a carbon fibre bonnet, there was a roll cage, there were bucket seats, coloured wheels, and a Nürburgring lap record for a front-wheel drive car. I was like, oh my God, I need this thing in my life. But it was a limited run, just 230 odd cars coming to the UK, and prices were, well, nearly 25 grand with all the kind of right options. So I just kind of accepted the fact that I was probably never going to see an R26R, probably never experience one, and definitely never own one. Well, 12 years later, with huge thanks to Renault UK, I am finally getting my chance to experience this iconic, modern classic hot hatch. Now you're probably expecting me to say for the R, Renault added 25 horsepower and a quicker shifting gearbox and a load of aero, but no, literally none of that. This car actually has the exact same 2-litre turbocharged engine, putting out the same 230 horsepower to be precise, the same gearbox, the same limited slip diff as the standard R26. However, it weighs 125 kilos less. 125 kilos, that is outrageous. It also has some very sticky Toyo tyres, all of that helping it to be an on-track weapon. To just go through some of those kind of weight-saving measures, because they are impressive. I've already mentioned the carbon fibre bonnet, and that thing does stand out when you look at this car from the outside, but there's also a lightweight titanium exhaust. Obviously in here, no rear seats. We've got a roll cage, added rigidity as well. These lovely bucket seats, which I have to say, feel like buckets. They're not easy to get in and out of, but my God, do they feel good when you're inside them. Now, interestingly, I've caught up with a Lotus Elise. Now, this thing isn't quite as light as that, but when it comes to power to weight, this is what the R26R is all about, because 230 horsepower, it's not a huge amount. Obviously, back in the day, it was relatively more, but even still, I think there were sort of questions as to whether they could have bumped that number up ever so slightly. Still, on the road, this thing feels amazing. If I'm honest, it lives up to what I hoped it would be, but it's very different. Firstly, the noise. Now, we're in a town at the moment, so if I just really slow down the speed, see if I can build up some of the noise. Do you hear that? I'm gonna say it. I actually think it sounds a little bit like a Pagani Huayra. Yes, I just said this 12-year-old Megane sounds like a Huayra. Anyway, here's a bit of an underpass. It's all which is, I kind of thought it would be a bit more Golf R32. I mean, very different engines. But yeah, in my mind, it was going to be a bit more, I don't know, symphonic? Oh, that's a big word for me today. Wow, I've only had one coffee. Anyway, so that was different. The ride, well, yes, it's stiff. I mean, it is stiff. Interestingly, all the reviews I read of this car always talked about the fact that because of the amount of weight Renault had managed to save in comparison to the standard R26, they actually softened off the suspension. This is supposed to be the more road compliant R26. But It's still stiff. It's nice, it's reassuring, it's sporty. Would it get annoying over a long-term basis? But potentially. But if you're buying this car to get comfort from the ride, you're definitely buying the wrong car. This steering is really nicely weighted. That's the thing I didn't expect. I thought the car would feel quite light and darty, but actually no, it's a solid feeling. And then in here, you've got no radio, and because of the sort of lack of tech, actually it's aged quite well. It's just very simplistic. If you told me this was the interior from a 2018 Renault, I'd be like, sure, I would kind of believe it. Maybe that's a disservice to Renault, I don't know. But yeah, it's all about one thing, which is driving enjoyment, and it is the ultimate, I think, B-road hooligan. I mean, just listen to that, and boy, does it go. I mean, this is all the power. I know I mentioned this sort of talk of maybe there could be more horsepower, but I really don't feel like I need it. This thing is just ready to fly. This thing is amazing. I absolutely love and I absolutely adore it, and as I say, it has lived up to the hopes I had for it. And you know, it would be easy for me to sit here and get nostalgic and romanticize about, you know, why they don't make hot hatches like they used to. Because how many times have I said that in recent other modern classic drives? Oh, why don't they just make cars like this? But the funny thing is, Renault still do. And that's actually the focus of today's video, because if you were 18 right now and you wanted to lust after a crazy, insane hot hatch from a company that are starting to creep up the Formula One ranks, they make something called the Megane Trophy-R. Let's go check that out. So here we are then, inside the Trophy-R. And I have to say, immediately, this thing feels so much more sophisticated and quick. I mean, it's just so quick. I did drive the standard Megane RS a couple of years ago. I remember really liking that thing and being so impressed by it. I'd forgotten just how much I liked it until I stepped into this car. But I would say the Trophy-R is kind of night and day from a standard Megane RS. Now, you've probably seen lots of articles and headlines, lots of videos about the fact that in the UK, this car can cost £72,000, which is, of course, is absolutely ridiculous. But to clarify, that is for a Nürburgring edition kind of car where you get carbon fiber wheels, carbon brakes, etc. The standard Trophy-R is 50 odd grand, which is still a lot for a Renault, but let me explain why I think that could be justified. I've just spent, well, what, 5, 6, 7 minutes talking to you about why I love the R26R, and the Trophy-R has so many similar characteristics to that car. They've sort of carbon copied that mold of how to make the R26R and just brought it into the 21st century. This is not the first Trophy-R, but I would argue that maybe it's the most impressive. Just like with the R26 and the R26R, the Trophy-R, loses 130 kilos from the standard Trophy. I mean, the weight saving is nuts, and it's actually obsessive. As an example, the infotainment system in here uses a smaller screen because it saves some 200 odd grams. I mean, that's how intense they went. Back in the R26 days, it was like, let's put some plastic windows in. Here, they're like, we want to save as much weight as possible. Why am I German when they are French? They're French, aren't they? No. That accent was as bad. You also get a carbon fiber bonnet, one of the most incredible carbon fiber rear diffusers I've ever seen in my entire life. Thinner rear glass, not plastic this time, but thinner. No rear seats, and if you want to buy the ordinary car, but still option the £12,000 weight-saving carbon wheels, well, you can. As you can see, because they're right behind me. You may have been thinking, what is that behind you, Sam? Well, it's a set of wheels, carbon fiber wheels. Absolutely nuts. Basically, Renault sort of engineered a space back there to house the wheels so that if you want, you can keep them with you and go to track, change the wheels over and just enjoy that little extra bit of weight saving. It's all kind of mad, but power remains the same as the Trophy. We've got that 1.8 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, which we've also seen in the Alpine. And I have to say, I really like it, except one thing. Let me see if I can do it now. Those pops and bangs, which I think sound awful, but the rest of the time kind of sounds amazing, and actually I think a lot better than the R26R. I don't know how much of it is synthesized, definitely those pops and crackles are, but yeah, it sounds meaty for a 4-cylinder. I can't believe it. Now, I mentioned that this car's a little bit more sophisticated, or it feels more sophisticated, and that's because, well, Renault Sport and the world have learned a lot more in the last 12 years since the R26R came out, and because of all that R&D and the way that the car world had moved forward, Renault were able to also kind of exploit or maximize other areas of this car, not just its weight saving. So they also turned their attention to aerodynamics and suspension. Now, I mentioned the carbon fiber bonnet on this car has quite a few sort of gills and ducts and holes in it. That's because it's kind of active aero. The underside of this car is nuts. The floor of this car is working kind of the hardest of anyone, making some proper downforce. Then I also mentioned that insane rear diffuser. In terms of suspension, we've got Öhlins dampers, which you can set up in 10 different ways. 10 ways for road and for track. Maximization, is that the right word there? Finally, they also did some work to the camber of the front wheels of this car, basically trying to enhance front end grip when cornering. Now, it does mean that every now and again you hit a bump on the road and the kind of car pulls in a certain direction, but it is aiding with overall cornering speed, grip, and feeling. Are you getting the idea? They took what was already this brilliant formula, this formula that was kind of mad and out there, which was the R26R, and then they just took it even further. In my mind, the R26R is already a modern classic, but my question is, how are people going to look back on this thing? Because it's essentially the same concept turned up to 11. It's mad, this thing, but kind of brilliant. On the road in an everyday kind of capacity, the Megane RS, the standard RS, or even the standard Trophy, probably enough. But if you are track obsessed, if you really do care about lap times and just having something a bit special, the Trophy-R is for you. But right now at 50 odd grand or even 70 odd grand, it is ludicrously expensive. So I think it's going to sort of make people, well, consider other options. But in the future, when who knows what the world will be making in terms of cars, is this going to look as special as the R26R? I think so. So yeah, I'm hugely grateful to Renault for giving me the chance to get behind this thing, because it is just madness, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Let me know, which one would you have, R26R or Trophy-R? Give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and make sure you stay subscribed for plenty more videos to come.